Siddharth Mittal, CEO and MD of Biocon, joins in. Welcome to the show, Siddharth. Always a pleasure to speak to you as well, and always, it's glad to have a candid conversation. My first question coming to you is, semaglutide is on the cards, I understand. Liraglutide is the conversation that we are having over here. When are you expecting that commercial launch in the US?
So you just received approval yesterday, and now we are preparing for the launch. We, of course, had a back order for supplies in Europe, but for the US, we are expecting that within the next 30 to 45 days, we should be able to launch the product.
Okay. And what's the kind of revenue contribution you're expecting liraglutide in terms of FY27? And let's accommodate for both Europe and the US markets.
See, US and Europe, we have to understand that over the last couple of years, the patients have moved to Ozempic and Mounjaro, and hence liraglutide market value has shrunk. But that said, there are still a lot of patients who continue to take this drug. And of course, right now we've got the approval for generic Saxenda, and there are limited number of players who have commercialized generic Saxenda in the US. So we still think there is a good opportunity. As per the latest IQVIA data, the sales in the US is roughly $130 million, which is already at the generic pricing. So we are hoping that this will be a meaningful contributor for us. And we are, of course, awaiting our approval for Victoza as well in the coming months. So when I look at both the markets, European and the US, I think somewhere between 50 to $100 million in revenues it can contribute in the next fiscal.
The market size in terms of liraglutide is shrinking. What is the market share then you're targeting in the next 2 to 3 years?
Again, depends on the number of players. As I said, right now it is a limited number of players market. So anywhere in the high teens to low 20s is what we will target. And in Europe, there are, of course, many more companies who have got approvals. And there, again, each market works very differently. So in certain markets, we have a much larger market share already, like Netherlands, which is a tender-based market where we and Biocon and our partners Zentiva jointly, we have secured many tenders, and there we do have a majority of the market share. And in certain other markets, the market share might be lower, so you have to really look at it country by country. But we are definitely hoping that, again, like US, we will be in mid-teens to 20s market share, because the overall number of players for liraglutide continue to be limited, given that a lot of companies who had filed for this drug many years back did not receive approval, and they've moved their focus to semaglutide. So the competition is still limited for liraglutide.
So competition is limited for liraglutide, so pricing pressure will not be as prevalent on that space. Now, given the price cuts that we are seeing in the entire portfolio, if you have to look at GLP-1 as a category, are you expecting aggressive pricing in the other products as well, like a semaglutide?
See, that's a bit speculative for me to comment on, because the pricing pressure is bases the action between the two innovators who are commercializing these GLP-1s. And over the last 12 months specifically, we have seen intense competition between, let's say, Ozempic and Mounjaro, and that's impacted the innovators. So now what will be the flow-through effect of that on generics and liraglutide? Yes, there will be an impact, because at the end of it, the payers and the insurance would look at monthly treatment cost. And as the monthly treatment cost comes down, there will be an impact on the generics pricing.
Okay, so if the monthly pricing comes down, there will be impact in terms of generic pricing, which actually means that all the Indian manufacturers from the generic side are going to face that pressure in terms of costs and an impact that comes in terms of margins as well. Coming to semaglutide, Siddharth, what's the timeline that you're looking at in terms of a semaglutide launch?
The semaglutide goes off patent in US and Europe in 31, but in other emerging markets, it goes off next month. So we have commenced our filing in some of the large emerging markets, and we will continue to file in many other markets. And the best case, we are looking at an approval in calendar 27. But more likely, I would build in revenue growth coming in from somewhere in calendar 28.
Okay. And Siddharth, very lastly, because this conversation is with regards to GLP, what is the broader US obesity strategy going to look like for a Biocon over the next 5 years?
Yeah, but I mean, you have to look at it really from a generic perspective. And as I mentioned today, the only product which has gone off patent is liraglutide, and semaglutide goes off patent in 31, and in the tirzepatide goes off patent in 34. So until then, we do not expect the volumes to increase in the US as more and more patients have moved to some of these newer drugs. And until then, we of course would launch the product, and with a limited competition, we expect to have a good FY28, and after which the growth specifically from US market for liraglutide will taper once you have achieved that market share.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth, so much for joining in. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and have this candid conversation.